Opium and Good Neighbours, how Solovyov justifies the current war by rewriting the history of Britain and Europe, Ukraine as an obstacle to peace and culprit of a future war, how 60 Minutes rewrites reality for Russian audiences. In the latest episode of Olga Skabeeva's 60 Minutes, Russian viewers are presented with a harsh and coherent picture. Ukraine is sabotaging the world, the US is leaning toward a deal with Russia, and Europe has failed its own strategy, and therefore risks ending up on the brink of war. This narrative is constructed from carefully selected quotes, half-truths, emotional accusations, and the construction of false cause and effect relationships. It's important for European readers to understand that what we're seeing is not a chaotic stream of propaganda, but a structured informational construct that addresses specific political objectives. 1. Opening frame. Ukraine is the culprit of the future war. The program opens with the statement that the Kyiv regime is sabotaging peace initiatives and provoking a full-scale war in Europe. This model is one of the basic templates of Russian TV. Russia is the side striving for peace. The US is the side ready for compromise. Europe is hysterical and incompetent. Ukraine is the sole culprit for the continuation of the war. This creates a fundamental frame. If the conflict continues, the blame is already placed on Kyiv. This is an important point. Russian audiences must get used to the idea that any escalation is the result of Ukrainian stubbornness, not Russian aggression. The Western press, in an attempt to undermine US peacekeeping efforts, continues to criticize Donald Trump's team. Politico reports that all diplomatic decisions in the White House are made by a small group of people. Family and friends of the American president, the National Security Council has been sidelined, and its members have been dismissed. The turbulent US foreign policy, from Russia to the Middle East, is managed by a small team of Trump's closest advisors: Special Envoy Witkow, Secretary of State Rubio, Vice President Vance, Secretary of Defense Hexet, and Chief of Staff Wells. This demonstrates the president's unwavering faith in his inner circle, consisting of old friends, family, and confidants, and underscores his deep distrust of the broader national security apparatus and the State Department. According to a White House official, Trump convenes this close circle at his own discretion. Meetings are held as needed, and decisions are made quickly. There is virtually no hierarchy, except for Trump at the top, and there are no restrictions on access to the president. Trump wants peace deals and he wants recognition, said one former administration official. He's less concerned with the details. We see peace talks being conducted not by diplomats or statesmen, but by businessmen. Mr. Putin's special envoy, Witkow, Steve Witkow and Jared Kushner. What are they really doing? Divvying up the spoils of war or essentially engaging in gangster diplomacy? There's no talk of finding a just peace. From this perspective, Ukraine's dire fate is that it's forced to continue fighting, even knowing it could lose. The Washington Post accuses Europeans of hypocrisy, criticizing the Trump administration for its reluctance to support Kyiv and Slovakia, and the EU for its unwavering support for Ukraine in practice, purchasing Russian LNG and refined oil from Indian refineries. Europe is unwilling to make sacrifices for Kyiv. With such friends, the newspaper concludes, enemies are unnecessary. It's impossible to achieve peace with Russia alone. The Americans met with Mr. Putin and with the Ukrainians in Miami, but they're not the same thing. 2. Main story: Zelensky disrupted peace without reading the US plan. The entire first minutes of the broadcast are devoted to repeating one thesis. Zelensky refused to read the American peace plan, which means he is hindering peace. This thesis is presented as fact, although Skabeeva relies solely on interpretations of third-party sources and Trump's statements. The goal is simple: deprive Zelensky of his agency, portray him as an infantile leader, dependent on oligarchs and his corrupt entourage, justify future concessions to Ukraine as the only rational option. An important detail: any difficulty in the negotiations is automatically interpreted as Ukrainian stubbornness, not as a defense of its territory. 3. Assigning the US to the role of peacekeepers, leaning toward Russia's position. The second key line of the program is the idea that Trump, Vance, Rubio, Kushner, and the new US team are preparing an honest peace plan that Ukraine is preventing. The program advances three main theses. The US is speaking directly to Russia, bypassing Kyiv. This is presented as a natural format for real diplomacy. The program talks about how American negotiators met in the Kremlin and that discussions are progressing. This instills in the viewer the idea that Ukraine is a pawn, while Moscow and Washington are the real players in the world. The US allegedly demands territorial concessions. Skabeeva reiterates that the territorial issue is hanging in the balance, and that Ukraine will have to withdraw its troops from Donbass. This idea is important for domestic audiences. It creates a sense of the inevitability of Russia's victory. American family diplomacy is an advantage US media criticize the closed circle of people determining Trump's foreign policy. The program presents it the other way around, as a fast, effective, pragmatic model. This creates the impression that the US is now ready to pressure Kyiv to reach a deal. 4. Europe as the world's main enemy. The last third of the program is devoted to dismantling the image of Europe as an independent geopolitical player. 3 techniques are used. Europe is hypocritical. An example is the purchase of Russian LNG through repackaging from India or Arab countries. Message to the viewer: Europe itself sponsors Russia but blames others. Europe impedes peace. Skabeeva claims that the EU is persuading Zelensky not to make concessions and is trying to disrupt US-Russian negotiations. This is an important political message. If peace is not achieved, Europe, not Moscow, is to blame. Europe is weak, divided and deteriorating. The viewer is shown the EU is amorphous, leaders are incompetent, strategies are failed. Kaja Kallas is especially demonized as a gift to the Kremlin, a provocateur of division, and a symbol of the Estonianization of EU policy. Think, analyze, draw conclusions, and don't be fooled. This was the program Empire of Lies.